What's up everyone, Lonnie Payne back here with another pinball video. Just reminding you, if you like what you see, please like, subscribe, share, and if you're ready, let's get going.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games.
Welcome back everyone. For those of you that watch my equipment video, you might notice that there's a piece of equipment missing. I didn't include my laser printer, and there's a couple reasons for that, but I'm going to cover today how to make your own vinyl decals, and if you're ready, let's get going. Okay, the printer I use is a HP LaserJet Pro 200. It's an M251NW. Great printer. I've had it for a couple years. It really does a nice job. And the reason it wasn't featured in my equipment video is at the time it wasn't working. I didn't know if it would ever work again. Yes, it was the product of a tragic vinyl printing accident. And I was actually able to get the printer fixed, and it's back printing now, and I'm going to show you how to run through everything, and I'll show you what happened and what you have to make sure you take account for when you're printing on this vinyl paper so you don't have the same thing that happened to me. I don't know if they still sell this anymore. You might have to buy it off the secondhand market on eBay or something. When I went to Best Buy, they were on to the next model. I have no reason to believe it wouldn't be great too, but kind of when you have something you really like, you like to stick to it, and this printer's been great. So I'm going to kind of show you how everything works in it and how to actually print, because the settings are a little different than what the paper tells you. But it's a great printer, and I think you'll have great results. The paper I use is from a company, Papilio, I think that's how you say it. And I use two different kinds, and try and get the lights a little weird in here, so try and get it to where you can see it. But the first one is laser gloss white polyester, and then the second paper is laser blue line gloss white permanent vinyl. And I'll show you the difference in the papers here. I'm not sure if you can see, the polyester has a little bit more of a glossy finish than the vinyl paper itself. I mean, they're both vinyl, but the polyester has a little bit more of a gloss to it, which doesn't really matter to me. I just wanted to try both of them. And you'll notice that the vinyl has a little piece of masking tape on the top, and it actually goes around to the bottom, whereas the polyester doesn't. They warn you that there's a lot of heat involved in these laser printers, and to use the lowest print setting you can for heat, because the higher the heat, the more risk you have of this paper actually separating. So when you put the paper in the printer, you actually put it with the tape in first on the side that feeds to keep it from unwrapping on the roller. I've used both of these. I've never had any trouble up to this point, but I actually have to use the highest gloss setting, otherwise the ink just doesn't stick to the paper, so it gets pretty hot when it comes out. And the last time I printed, when I was redoing my Harley-Davidson pinball machine, I needed one more set of decals because I'm a perfectionist and I wanted to replace one of them. And when I printed, the only thing that came out was the backing paper, and I was using the polyester. And what had happened was exactly what they talked about. The heat, I guess when it went in, the heat caused it to separate. It actually wrapped around the roller that is back in here to where you could barely even see it. And it took quite an effort I had to disassemble the whole printer, and I'll put a couple pictures on about how I finally got the paper out of there. And when I put it all back together and printed, it printed perfectly. So I'm back in business, and so this is what I use to do my vinyl decal. The decals I'm going to print today are from Jurassic Park, and I've created an entire decal set for this machine. Both the apron decals, I created the grass decals, the T-Rex chute when lit. I made a couple modifications to the decals, actually centered the cutout. The original from the factory is off center, so if you have a Jurassic Park machine, you'll know exactly what I mean. And so I created the decals for the E-Stock sign and various other small decals, but this is the machine I'm going to use, so let's get started. Alright, I started with a decal set that's readily available on the internet, But they were strictly scans of originals, so they had a lot of trash in them, and the scans themselves were not real high quality. So I took and I edited every single decal to make them as new quality as I could. And I changed the colors slightly, made them match my machine perfectly. I think they're pretty close to the original anyways, but since I did this for my restoration, I made them match perfectly. And then a couple of changes that I made, you'll see, is on the hole for the Shoot the T-Rex light. The hole itself was off center in the original, so I edited the graphic and put that hole in the middle where it needed to be, so it just looks a lot cleaner. And then I left the center yellow, so when you cut that hole, if you don't cut it perfect, you're not going to see white slivers. Now I left the holes for the rivets normal in this because they're actually covered with the edge anyway, so if you don't cut those perfectly, it's not going to matter. And then I took and separated the grass out, put them on a different sheet, and obviously I don't like to waste paper, so when I print, I actually print a little bit more, so I can actually print 3 sets with this single graphic. But you know, they look a little different, and the very lightest green is not quite as neon as the original. That's almost impossible to print without a high-end printer. And so I've made it what I think is a pretty good print, and if you replace all decals, which is what I recommend, they're all going to match, and it's going to be a really nice finished product. And what I also did on this one was I extended the green around the edges of the decals, kind of like what I said on the other. So when I cut these decals, if I don't cut them exactly perfect or get just a hair outside the line, you're not going to see little white slivers. It's going to be a nice, solid looking edge. The only difference I made on these was I took the holes for the screws and actually continued the black. So when you cut that hole, you'll have black on the edges instead of white circles. Like, you know, you don't want to see that. You want it to be nice and clean. And I actually powder coated my plate this hunter green color, so it blends really nicely. But so I got 2 different decal sheets, one for the grass, one for the regular decals, and I'm going to print up the grass ones and show you how it works. Okay, so if you use the polyester vinyl that doesn't have the tape on it, you want to get some masking tape. And you just want to go ahead and put a little piece of tape over the edge that you're going to send through the printer first. You go ahead and fold that over. That way when you feed that through, you won't have this thing come off like it did to me that one time and basically ruin your printer. Now, one thing you have to make sure is that when you're working with this, that you don't take the printable area all the way up to the top. You can see on this one you lose about a ½ an inch or so of printable area from that tape, so you don't want to have anything right up there. You might actually print on the tape and ruin your decal. Now what I will suggest is before each time you print, you want to run a cleaning page off the service menu. This particular one has a touchscreen menu. You go through the settings, cleaning, prints out a page that looks like this, and what you want to make sure is you don't have any trash on it, and then it goes through, cleans it, and then prints another page out which should be clean. If you have any trash on here, do it again, because anything if it's not clean or any residual stuff, it will get on this type of print a lot easier than it will a normal piece of paper. And so I actually had this set up for gloss paper printing, and that's one of the higher heat settings. So there's a few things you have to watch when you actually print as well. So I'm going to hit print here in a little bit. I'm just going to kind of explain. You're going to set this actually prints face down when it comes out. So you just load it in the top of the tape towards it. And then when you print, because this thing is so hot, when it comes out, if the paper just actually slides out and hits this spot right here, it can actually stick. Of course, that'll ruin your decal. The paper will start wrinkling as it comes out. So you want to stick your hand up here, and I kind of put my fingernail up there, and when it comes out, I'm just going to grab it between these 2 fingers and just make sure it doesn't hit anything, and then lay it down and let it dry and cool down. And so that's the first thing we'll do, and we'll get printing. All right, so it's printing. So like I said, we'll get ready to catch it here. You can actually feel the heat a little bit on the paper as it's coming out. So like I said, you just want to keep the top from touching anywhere on the printer. You can see it's a nice, beautiful print. Hope there's not too much reflection from the lights. We'll let that sit there and cool, and then we'll laminate it. Alright, for laminating, I got a simple laminator. It's a Fusion 1100L from Office Depot. Allows me to laminate either 3 or 5 mil lamination. It's thermal laminating, so just you get your letter size laminating sheets off of Office Depot. This works fine. And we're going to laminate these decals. Now, one thing you'll notice is obviously if you laminate both sides of this decal, then you got to pull one side off with the sticky. I've done it that way and it works, but it's a little harder to get the backing off. So I've come up with something that I like to do, and that is I'll take a piece of cardstock and I'll actually put it behind the paper and then laminate it like that. And then when you cut an edge around it, that back piece just falls away and you have lamination on the front and just the regular sticky on the back. It's much easier to pull that off without bending or any kind of damage to the top lamination piece. So just that's kind of a little trick that I like to use, and I'll do it that way and show you how it works. Alright, so we've got a piece of lamination here, and what you want to try and do is keep any kind of lint or anything from getting between the laminate and the decal, or you will actually see that after you heat this stuff up. So you want to get both your pieces of paper lined up, and then you're going to try and just kind of slide it in there without really opening it up and keeping the exposure to a minimum as far as getting any kind of trash or anything in there. So you just push it up to the top, kind of make sure that everything's lined up so we can laminate and seal on the edges. So we're going to take our laminator. Now I don't use the little thing it sends with you. I just stick it straight in there. And the reason I use cardstock for the backing is if you use just a regular piece of paper, it tends to warp a little bit. You want something that has a little bit of strength to it to keep it rigid, so the lamination isn't pulling from the back and front at different pressures. And I found that using the thicker cardstock on the back gets it a lot cleaner look. All right, there's our finished product. I kind of looking at the angles in there. I don't see any lint or anything. Everything looks really nice. And so now we'll end up doing a little cutting, and I'll show you how the final product looks. All right, so what I did was I actually turned it over, ran it through again, so got a nice good seal on it. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of cut along the edge inside the line of the paper. All right, then like I said, that bottom piece that was laminated on the bottom just comes off, and now we're left with a laminated sheet on top and just the regular paper backing on the bottom. So when we want to remove the adhesive, it's a lot easier than trying to deal with this piece of lamination. All right, so we're ready to cut. I have a little set of scissors that I use only for cutting decals, so I know that I haven't dulled them for any reason. Then I get a pair of pretty good magnifiers so I can get a really good look at this. Now, even though I've extended the green area, I mean, if you look real close, I mean, you can see where, based on the black, where the edges are. So it's not like you don't know where to cut, but just gives you that little bit of buffer if you don't make a perfect cut. So what I'll do, I'm just going to cut this smallest one here. Alright, so after I'm happy with the final product, then because you're handling it and you're bending it a little bit when you're touching it, I actually run it through again. So if anything happened with the stickiness of it, if you will, it'll actually relaminate it and you're done handling it and you're ready to put it on the game. Like I said, I usually turn it over, run it again. Alright, so here's our final decal. This is the little bash area on Jurassic Park that everybody needs a new one of. But it's done, it's laminated. Actually on this particular decal, or any decal that gets a lot of abuse, sometimes I actually put the 5mm Mylar on it, but I actually don't have any of that with me today, so I'm using what I use on the standard decals. Even with the 3mm, it'll last quite a long time. So there's your new decal. Just take the backing off, put it on, you're ready to go. Well, that's it for this video. Hope you learned a little bit on how to make your own vinyl decals, and it'll help you in any kind of restoration work you do in the future. So if you like what you saw, like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.